Did you know that most people who visit the Louvre in Paris actually fail to notice the largest painting in the museum's collection? That's because this magnificent work suffers the unfortunate fate to hang in the shadow of the Mona Lisa. Da Vinci's world-famous painting draws huge crowds, and you often have to stand in line to see it. In this video, I'll explain why it's a good idea to stare just a little bit longer at the Wedding Feast at Cana by Paolo Veronese, instead of waiting in line just to get a quick glimpse of a rather small Mona Lisa. I already mentioned the painter, Paolo Veronese, a Mannerist artist who moved from Verona to Venice in 1553. He was one of the three great Venetian painters of the 16th century, together with Titian and Tintoretto. While Titian was the more cosmopolitan of the three, working in courts all around Europe, Veronese and Tintoretto never left Venice. Because of the immense size of many of their paintings, you can still find plenty of their artworks in the city today. These two really pushed each other's boundaries in terms of work ethic and the dimensions of artworks they produced. Paolo Veronese painted all types of religious and historical paintings, but he is best known for his immense banquet scenes. The Wedding Feast at Cana is without a doubt the work that earned him eternal glory in the beautiful city of Venice. It's an enormous work of art with a width of almost 10 meters or 32.8 feet. I suggest not ordering a reproduction of this painting, because it covers over 67 square meters or over 724 square feet. Veronese's paintings are known for their bright colors and the exaggeration of the harmonious ideals of the Renaissance. These are defining elements of the Mannerist period, also known as the Late Renaissance, a 16th century art movement. Despite the painting's size, it's actually quite detailed, and it also integrates a huge number of symbolic elements. As was often the case, it was commissioned to decorate a wall inside an opulent building in Venice. In this case, it were the monks of the San Giorgio monastery who hired Veronese to decorate their clubhouse. Now let's take a closer look at what we actually see here. The artist was given the complicated task to paint a representational painting of a popular biblical story. Known as the Wedding at Cana, this story is world famous for featuring Jesus' miracle of turning water into wine. Cana was a city in the region of Galilee, and according to the story, Jesus, his mother, and his disciples were invited to a wedding party there. When the guests started complaining about the wine, Jesus ordered the servants to fill all barrels with water. Shortly after, the best wine in town was flowing richly, and the guests started complimenting the people who threw the party. According to popular belief, this was the first of Jesus' public miracles, and without a doubt one of the best known as well. Before I dive deeper into the painting's symbolism, let's take a closer look at the people who attend the wedding party. It's clear that they already ate, as the tables are full of empty plates, and this woman is cleaning her teeth with a toothpick. The lower half of the painting features a total of 132 people, most of whom are richly dressed in Oriental and even Asian clothes. Seated in the central part of the painting, we can see Jesus, his mother, and some of his apostles. The groom and bride are placed at the edge of the guest tables, so they switch places with Jesus and his entourage. The painter also included a large number of famous people from the 16th century, including himself. The man wearing white clothes playing a type of violin, and who probably had a couple of glasses of wine already, is Paolo Veronese himself. What's fascinating is that he also included his two main rivals, Tintoretto wearing blue and Titian wearing red, right next to him. The man directly to the right of Titian, wearing distinctive Asian clothes, has been identified as Italian poet Pietro Aretino. Aretino was also a feared critic at the time, so it's no accident that he's the one expecting a newly poured glass of wine. Near the married couple we can see Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottoman emperor at the time. Other famous people among the guests are several European monarchs. Some of these are Eleanor of Austria, Francis I of France, Mary I of England, and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. On top of that, Veronese included a whole range of lesser-known famous people as well. Unfortunately, not all 132 people in this painting have been identified, but they would have been easily recognized by contemporary viewers. The setting of the lower half of the painting is likely a representation of the refectory where the painting once hung. What's fascinating is that the painting hung a couple of meters above the ground, so the party would have appeared as an extension to the tables where the monks were eating. Famous architect Andrea Palladio designed the San Giorgio monastery in 1559, and his work was typically humble with little decorative elements. Because of this, Veronese chose to integrate immense classical columns and other architectural elements to frame this lavish scene. The balcony splits the canvas in half, and the blue sky features the vibrant color that defines the Venetian school of the 16th century. Now let's take a closer look at the symbolic elements in this colossal work of art. As you would expect, Veronese made several references to Jesus' miracle in this painting. The servants are pouring wine from the large barrels that were once filled with water into smaller pitchers. Other servants already started offering glasses of miracle wine to the guests as they eagerly awaited the final course. The bride and groom don't exactly look happy. After all, they just ran out of wine at their party and people already started complaining. The head of the party wears green and appears to be signaling that everything will be fine soon. When you take a closer look at the balcony, you can see that many people are busy preparing the food for the guests. Now here's something remarkable. The butcher's blade aligns perfectly with the figure of Jesus below. This is a reference to the sacrifice of Jesus as the Lamb of God. Equally fascinating are the architectural details on both sides. You can see the difference between light and shadow. This is a symbol of both the immortal and eternal beings on this immense canvas. It's also considered to be a reference to the earthly pleasures that are being enjoyed tremendously, as well as the transience of life. This is also emphasized by the hourglass that stands near the musicians in the foreground, which indicates that our life on earth is limited. Finally, here's an interesting observation. This painting once hung at the dining hall of Benedictine monks. They had a strict code of conduct, which included complete silence during meals. The word silentium, or silence, was even carved above the door where the monks entered the hall. This lively painting simply evokes music and chatter, and was meant to serve as an additional test for the monks who once lived here. It must have been rather difficult to keep quiet when you were facing this monumental masterpiece, don't you think? Now let's take a closer look at the equally interesting history of the painting, and how it miraculously ended up at the Louvre. First of all, the painting hung in its original location for 235 years. During this time, it weren't merely the monks at the monastery who saw it. They started inviting guests to admire the painting, and soon, painters and sculptors from all across Europe started flocking to the San Giorgio monastery. The painting's fame soon reached incredible levels as travel guides started featuring it for tourists in Venice. After well over 2 centuries in its original location, the painting was stolen by the troops of Napoleon Bonaparte. This happened on September 11, 1797, at the height of the Italian campaigns of the French Revolutionary Wars. The painting is so large that the French had to cut it horizontally before they rolled it up. It was stitched back together at the Louvre in 1798. This was just 5 years after the museum had opened its doors. After the final fall of Napoleon in 1815, the repatriation of stolen art started, but remarkably, the wedding feast at Cana wasn't included. This was because of this guy, Vivant Denon, the curator of the Louvre during Napoleon's era. He claimed that the painting was in such a terrible state that it was impossible to transport back to Italy. He clearly saw the tremendous value of this painting, and because of this blatant lie, the painting still hangs in the Louvre today. Remarkably, since the 1980s, the entire south wing of this immense museum has been named in his honor, the Pavillon des Noms. By 1989, the painting was 426 years old. This also meant that the bright and vivid colors had faded tremendously. This was the year that the Louvre decided to start a rather complicated restoration project, which lasted about 3 years. Upon completion, the bright Venetian colors of Veronese's wedding feast at Cana shined once again. So what about the painting's original location, the refectory of the monastery of San Giorgio in Venice? Since 2007, you can admire a digital copy of the work in the exact same location the original once hung. This way you can at least get an idea of what the monks saw during their lunch in this dining hall. Remarkably, the clothes of the man leading the wedding party were transformed from red to green during the restoration. These were actually the original colors before Veronese himself overpainted them. So to wrap up this video, I believe that this painting is definitely one of the ultimate highlights at the Louvre. And this isn't merely because it's the largest painting in the museum's collection. In my opinion, it perfectly blends a lavish contemporary wedding scene with religious symbolism. Once you start staring at this monumental painting, it's definitely very hard to keep your eyes away.